Hello and welcome. Welcome to this end of year conversation here on LinkedIn Live. I'm Rajana, founder of Speaker Story Bank. And as always, what we love to do here at Speaker Story Bank is elevate the speakers, the thought leaders, the industry leaders who are helping us think different, but more importantly, do different. And as we were thinking about the end of the year and how we wanted to send ourselves off, but also think about the new year ahead, we were saying that the best thing we could do for ourselves is think about how do we redefine what work looks like in the new year? How do we come alive at work in 2026? And this conversation today is a little more personal for me because these four speakers that I'll be engaging with in just a few moments here, I've had the pleasure of working with them over the last 4 months. We've had strategy calls, we've done emails about them, we've put things on LinkedIn, I've had conversations about them. But what has really resonated for me is that time that I had to really be able to understand what they're talking about, how they're transforming those audiences that they're speaking to, and how does that affect each of us? And when I work with speakers, I always want to think about how can what they're saying change what I'm doing, both personally and professionally. And we're going to talk about some of that today with Ian Beecraft when he talks about creativity. And it's one of the key factors leading into 2026. We're hearing a lot about creativity and this age of disruption and change. We need to get more creative. And the thing is, we're built for it. And I started to see more of that as I started to continue to work with Ian on those things and just learn from him. Then, that will not come alive if you don't unmute yourself. We hold ourselves back in ways that we know and that we don't know. And that's something that Rachel Druckenmiller really pointed out as we were having conversations. And I loved seeing her. I got to see her in an audience earlier a few months ago as well, and deliver that keynote to a group of HR leaders. And it was really interesting to just see how people engaged with that and started thinking there are ways that we're holding back that we don't even know. So it's time to unmute that. And of course, if you unmute yourself and you look at the creativity possibilities that you have, none of it is going to stick if you are not authentically yourself. And that is something that Mike Robbins is going to bring to us today. And then all of this comes together in the way that Gene Sparrow will explain how we have to live it and sell it. We have to tell it and live it and sell it. And she's going to help us understand how to communicate clearly all aspects of this. What I love about bringing this entire group together today is that we're also talking about in the new year, in this industry, how are we helping meeting planners and speaker buyers, anyone who's bringing in speakers and connecting audiences to these ideas, how do we help them curate differently? This isn't just about one speaker being the answer. This isn't just about one idea being the answer. This is about coming together with intention, with strategy, and curating a conversation forward. So we hope as we have this conversation today, it's not only that you'll gain some insights about these topics, how you can bring them to your audiences, how some of these speakers here are key speakers that you could bring to elevate those conversations, but we also hope it's going to inspire you to have different conversations internally with your teams and think about that creation. So to kick us off, I want to introduce Ian Beecraft. Ian is the CEO of Signal and Cipher. It's a change management agency that helps leaders and organizations think about disruption in a different way and also help them create AI transformation without disruption. And here's the thing, disruption does not have to be that dirty word and we're sick of hearing it. It should be something we get excited about now because we know, again, we're built for these things. I got to see Ian speak in September for Tata Consultancy, and he talked about something called the creative generalist. We can all be creative generalists, and it is what is needed in these years to come, and it is what will light you up. So before I bring in Ian to have this conversation, I'd love to just share a clip of a conversation he and I had right after that engagement that he had with Tata Consultancy. Let's take a look.
The point of the creative generalist is that we all went to school in a world that said, go to school, get a degree, build expertise and depth of expertise in a subject, and that creates a defensible career. That's how you get promoted and how you build success. What AI does is it abstracts the years of discipline, expertise, experience, exposure, and interest necessary to perform proficiently at something. Now, notice I did not say at an elite level. I didn't say it's going to replace experts. But what it does is it actually builds on the foundation of our depth of expertise and our skills and gives us access to new capabilities. So what this does is it breaks down the rigid job descriptions that we have in terms of how we can impact at work and expands those capabilities beyond what our role might be expecting of us so that we can have that larger impact and that we can start to make connections and see connections across those silos that typically get in the way of the flow of work. We can all be creative generalists. This is not just a specific title or a type of person. By leaning into the capabilities that AI gives us access to, we can all start to make those connections and start to facilitate the flow of work across the silos.
That excites me so much because no matter your role, you can start from your own essence. What do you bring to the table? This just expands the conversation.
Well, I have a lot of empathy for people who are paralyzed by that idea. But what this creative generalist concept does is it changes the focus from what's being automated away from my job and my role, kind of lifts your eyes up towards the horizon of how is capacity and capability expanding, and there's this new territory I get to explore. The cool thing is that part expands faster than this part contracts. But we're used to this paradigm where automation means abstraction, and rather than being able to see how our capacity expands. It's something we have to get used to. We're not used to it yet. It hasn't become part of the infrastructure, kind of like the social norms yet. But I anticipate that will change.
Oh, hi, Ian. I'm like, of course,
Hey, John.
muting myself. But welcome, my friend. I'm so happy to have this
Good to
conversation.
be with you. Likewise, I'm excited to be here.
That clip about creative generalists, I loved it the day we had it. And since that day, I've been talking about it with a lot of industry colleagues and just friends of mine as well. And the thing that captivates me about it is just, it's that opportunity that we all have. It's that there's this innate ability for us to be creative. And we have either forgotten it, don't think about it, but this is the time to sort of rise to the challenge and the opportunity, I think. And I love that you're having more conversations about this with leaders. And I'd love to just hear back from you what you're hearing from them as you bring this idea to them.
Absolutely. So the whole point of talking about creative generalists is to take the attention away from the tactics and the tool sets that everyone's so fixated on and really lean into like, what are the things that we're actually trying to affect with this information? The things that really matter are how we're looking at the structure of our work, the way we're augmenting the teams that we have, the way we're actually helping facilitate the growth of the people on our teams. And just focusing on getting better at the tools is only one step in that process. We actually have to re-engineer how we do the work and how we expect people to interact with the tools to do the work itself. By looking at life through the lens of being a creative generalist, it expands our possibilities and takes the conversation away from automation being an extractive component and AI being an augmentation.
Yeah. And, we also talked about it that we have to really be sensitive to how people are, listening to this and hearing it. And there are some obviously real issues that, some people's jobs are going to change or completely go away. But this is an opportunity to be creative and look at it from a different perspective. How do you help people sort of assess where they are in this and kind of take a little bit more control themselves to feel like they can move this idea forward?
Yeah, the most important thing is to help people have that aha moment of how AI can have meaningful impact in their lives. If AI is just kind of pushed down from on high and the CEO says, either you get with the program or you're out, that's going to create anxiety. Like that doesn't actually create a whole lot of help for the people who are still already struggling. But by creating environments where they can explore and experiment with direction and momentum, that creates an environment where they can do it without having to just feel like they're being overwhelmed. And that gives them an opportunity to explore how it impacts them personally. When someone has that aha moment of like, oh my gosh, I can do this in a way I never thought possible, they start to lean in. Or when they see someone who looks like them, talks like them, works in the same department as them, having success with it, that's way better than someone telling you, you need to be doing this. So people need to see success or be able to envision a future where they can be successful and have those moments before they can start to lean in and start exploring. Because it's that
Yeah.
exploratory behavior that changes everything.
Yeah, and I think it takes the burden off of just leadership, right? This isn't leaders have to have all the answers. You could have a lot of people in your organization that have different ideas, and this is their opportunity to bring those forward and shine.
Absolutely. I mean, leaders aren't supposed to have all the answers. They're supposed to create the vision that people can enlist themselves in, and that clarity creates an opportunity for them to essentially enlist themselves in that, so they don't have that anxiety. When there's no vision and all there is some mandate to go learn this technology, that's what creates anxiety. But when people see what the future could look like if they're able to build it, they show up.
Yeah. So, what is one thing that organizations can do in the new year to really kick this off the right way and help align their people, or just first even their leadership and then their people? What are some of those steps?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, from the leadership perspective, we need to go from agreement to alignment. One of the things that so many organizations are struggling with is every single leader understands and agrees that AI is important. It's the most transformative technology of our time. But if you asked every single executive on that team, what is your strategy? Why is it important? And what specifically are you doing for your people to be upskilled? You'd get different answers from every single one of them. That creates confusion. That makes it so people don't know where to look, where to go for help, or where they're even fitting within that vision. So getting to alignment is step number one. You don't have to have all the answers of how you're going to get there, but having a crystal clear vision that you can share with your team means that they can also be a part of creating the roadmap to get there. So that's step one. Then step two is creating an environment where it's safe to experiment and people have access to the tools that they can experiment with, and creating an opportunity for them to have direction and guardrails behind that. I see too many organizations saying, well, let's go experiment, do whatever you want with it. And then they come back and they've got a bunch of use cases that don't really make sense, no momentum, and just a bunch of kind of distracted engagements. So having that guardrail helps people have a sandbox in which they can be creative within and discover and explore. The next is then helping people understand that you can augment your skill sets, not just automate work. If all
Mm.
you're doing is thinking about how you can be more efficient, effective, and cheaper, you're missing the point. That's a paradigm that's from the last 150 years. That's the kind of the lever we always pull. But if you focus on the new skill sets, the new capabilities and capacity you have access to, that's at the foundation of the creative generalist concept. Because what AI does is it abstracts the years of discipline, expertise, and exposure needed to perform something proficiently, as we were saying in the video. And if you give people access to that, now you're giving the ability to kind of access new capabilities that they didn't be able to bring to work with them previously, and now actually bring that value to their job.
Yeah. I love that so much. My father-in-law tells me a story all the time when he worked on an assembly line and he went to one of his managers and said, I have an idea. And the manager said, I don't pay you for ideas. Get back in line and do your work. Right. So, like, to think how far we've come in this short period of time is just amazing. And that's why I keep saying it is challenging, but it is such an opportunity if we could tap into this deeper creativity that we all possess.
Without a doubt. And that's what this does. This creates an opportunity to level the playing field. And the beautiful thing is this is so new that even if you feel behind, if you invest a serious amount of time and effort over the next couple of months, you can catch up to anyone who's even advanced right now. It's not like people have a 15, 20-year head start. Most people who've been spending any time in this, maybe a year or two at most, to really understand how this is working. So anyone can catch up and create value with this.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to keep everyone running here, but what is one thing that really excites you about 2026? I mean, you've been on many stages this year. You've been with incredible leaders, off stage, on stage. From those rooms and what you're hearing in organizations, what are some things that are really piquing your interest and exciting you for the new year?
The thing that's exciting me the most is the depth of the questions that I'm getting. For the last few years, it's been more, well, we know AI is important. Should we be thinking about? Now I'm getting really specific, granular questions about how to implement and how to create programs that support their people. Like really incisive, knowledgeable questions that come from experience, because people are spending more time doing this within their organization. And that means that we're going to be making a lot more progress. So I'm really excited about those conversations.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I look forward to seeing more of your work, online, everything you're doing, and on those stages. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Likewise, Mishana. Thank you.
Well, as we said, creativity and this kind of creative generalist mentality does not happen unless you can unmute yourself, unmute the ways in which you're holding back, create more confidence in what you're doing. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with Rachel Druckenmiller. Rachel has spent over a decade as a director of well-being and employee engagement in the insurance industry. And she also is on stages now as a speaker, delivering on content that really is something that she has done as a true practitioner inside organizations and has lived it herself. And one of the concepts that she talks about is being able to borrow belief from others in you when you don't have that confidence. And I want to share this one clip from a piece of her keynote that kind of sets that up before we bring Rachel into the conversation. Let's take a look.
What if we could begin to do something that will help every single one of you get through the places where you're stuck and doubting yourself. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Borrow other people's belief in you. Borrow other people's belief in you. You might doubt yourself. You might think you are not capable, that you do not have what it takes. And I can promise you there is somebody in your life who sees things differently. And you know what? I bet they're right. And so in that moment, I got to borrow Kara's belief in me, and I reached out to 18 other people in my life over the next few months. And the list of words that I got back from these people and phrases about how they saw me, you know what nobody said? Nobody said, Rachel, you're so accomplished and successful. That's what you bring into a room. They said nothing.
And that was such a great clip, I think, because it is one of those things that we all need. We need to, right, Rachel? I mean, sometimes we just don't have the confidence. We need to think about how people are speaking about us, to us, and we have to hold that a little dearer and nearer. Welcome to this conversation. I really want to kind of dive into that piece of it with you.
Let's go. Let's do it. I'm here for it.
Well, I mean, first, let's just tackle that. I saw you in the room when you delivered a piece of that to the group of HR leaders, just, a month ago or so. And I really just, they're just taking notes. They're being more reflective. I talked to some people afterwards. You speak with them after every event. And they really, I think what we found is people don't take enough time to even think about their values, their own level of confidence, how they could change it, right? And if we get more intentional with it, that's kind of the first start to this idea of even unmuting ourselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to have the courage to unmute ourselves, to show up with confidence and clarity about who we are, what we bring to the table, if we're going to put ourselves out on a limb and be willing to make a contribution and raise our hand and share an idea or offer a solution, we have to fundamentally believe in a sense of our own worth and value.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't believe that you are somebody who matters, like, you're not going to do any of this.
Yeah. And I mean, so with you, again, you're a real practitioner of this. You, in terms of the engagement that you brought, the engagement, employee engagement, culture creation that you did over 10 years and the role that you had, you also were a person that had to go through a real challenging time and had to find your new way through it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I was running these wellness programs and employee engagement initiatives in our organization and with the clients that we worked with, the name of our program, this was 15 years ago, the name of our program was Come Alive. And it was Spark. And then the tagline was Come Alive, because I love this Howard Thurman quote of, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
Yeah.
And when I think about what it is to be well, it's to come alive. It's to have vitality. It's to have energy. It's to have this drive and this connection to purpose. And when I was the director of well-being at my company at 32 years old, I disconnected from that myself, and I completely burned out, was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus, and felt like a shell of myself. I felt like a total fraud. I had just been named the #1 health promotion professional in the country, and less than a year later, I was burned out and too afraid to talk about it. And I felt dead inside. So I come by this desire to help people come alive very honestly, because I know what it's like. And so do so many other people know what it's like to feel defeated, depleted, and dead inside. And I also know what it feels like to be on the other side of that, and what a gift it is to feel alive.
Well, not only the burnout, but you literally got hit by a truck. Can you, like that? I mean, you had to come back alive sort of from a really, severe injury. And that's the part that was like a really catalytic moment for you, right?
Very catalytic. I mean, all of us, if you think about anybody here in the past 6 years, has had a moment where you could say, I didn't see it coming. I felt like I got hit by a truck. I'm like, 0 stars, would not recommend. It was a pretty terrible experience. But at the same time, sometimes we have to have these moments that really shake us up to make us realize and think about, well, what have I not done? What am I not doing? How am I not showing up with all that I have to offer? In what ways am I letting doubt and fear and insecurity hold me back from doing what I'm capable of doing and from doing what I'm meant to do? And so the accident was a big catalyst for me to answer some of those questions for myself and do some stuff I'd always wanted to do that made me feel alive after feeling, again, so dead inside again.
And one thing I think is really important for us to touch on that you talk about a lot as well is that this idea of tapping into ourselves and our essence in a unique way. It doesn't have to be specific to something at work, but if we do something outside of work that
Mhm.
lights us up, we will be lit up that much more at work. And you have a great example of that HR leader and writing the children's book that I'd just love for you to share that story here, because I think everyone can find something in their lives similar that can light them up, even if work isn't immediately doing it for you.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I think people expect work. People put a lot of pressure on work to be everything. Work is my community. Work is my sense of purpose. Work is where I get meaning. Work, like the pressure that we put on work to be the
Mm.
end all be all for us to meet every single need we have. Work is where I creatively express myself. People are going to be let down by that inevitably. And so this HR leader, early 60s, HR generalist, that's his day job. And he sends me a message on LinkedIn 2 days after the keynote. And he says, "You inspired me to stop scrolling on iPad games at night," which I'm sure is relatable to nobody else. And and he said, and to start writing the children's book, I've always wanted to write, but I always told myself I was too late. It's already been done before, but Dr. Seuss started late and so can I.
Mm.
And he started down this process, and I connected him to a woman that I know through LinkedIn who's written several children's books. They've had a call together. And I think sometimes coming alive happens when somebody else steps in as a catalyst, here's the vision that we have for the thing that we want to do, and helps us move it along, because now this guy who's been an artist since he was 4 years old, who's had this dream of
Mm.
illustrating a children's book as an HR generalist, how much more alive is he going to be at work when he's taking this passion that he's had for over 50 years and he's starting to bring that to life? Like, of course, there's going to be a positive contagion that spreads in his organization, in the people that he works with, in the people he connects with. And he might inspire them to follow a dream that they have left on the shelf too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I remember during one of my jobs 20 years ago, I was doing screenwriting at like 3 and I'd wake up at 3 in the morning to do some screenwriting, and it got me on fire. It got ideas generating. I mean, it aligns, adjacently to marketing and things that I do. So I think it's really important. And I hope people take that away as sort of a tip towards this and how they could unmute themselves and come alive with some of these ideas. But do you have any other sort of tip or strategy that you want to leave with everyone today?
Yeah, so there's a few questions. I'm a fan of curiosity. I think we unlock so much insight, perspective, and clarity when we ask better questions. And so there's some questions that anyone that's with us today could ask themselves to help get unstuck and to become unmuted. And the first is asking yourself, what is the cost of me silencing myself, doubting myself, or holding myself back? What is it costing me in terms of advancement in my career, in terms of fulfillment and happiness and joy in my life? The second question is, if it were just right, what would it look like? So when you think about the area where you're holding back, let's cast a vision for the future that excites us and say, if that area were just right, if I weren't holding back, if I weren't ruled by fear and doubt, what would that look like? The third question we can ask ourselves is, what are the strengths and capabilities that are already inside of me that I can draw on to help bring that vision to life? And then the last question is, what becomes possible in my life, in my work, in my relationships, in my impact and influence on the people around me if I come alive and if I move toward that vision for the life that I have, where I am more alive and exhilarated and invigorated and liberated and free and empowered. These are all the things that people tell me at the end of the keynotes that they want to feel. And that's what it is to feel alive, to know that who you are and what you bring to the world is a contribution and that it makes a difference and
Mhm.
an impact. That is the ultimate way that any of us can feel alive and feel like we've really made a difference.
Mm. Yeah, I just, again, this is how strategic and intentional you are with those questions, right? Because people have bandied about this idea, well, find your purpose. And if you find your purpose, that gives you that aliveness. But then people don't have the steps to get there. And this feels really practical in terms of moving those ideas forward.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear. I've asked myself these questions, which, I've come by this honestly. I think that's the most important thing we can do as leaders, is to look in the mirror, be honest about what's there, and give ourselves the opportunity to imagine what could be.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. This is great.
Thank you.
Um, Moving on, I want to bring in Mike Robbins. We're going to share a little clip from him before we bring him on. But Mike Robbins, I mean, when I first met Mike, I thought to myself, how do I not know about you? And he's built an incredible business, going on stages, bringing his thought leadership to a lot of audiences. And the message, I mean, he was recruited from the Yankees in high school, and then he turned that down to play for Stanford, and then got recruited by the Kansas City Royals. So he has this sports background, but that all got stopped because he had a major injury, and he had to, again, face a challenge, change his life and situation, started working in the tech industry, and started seeing how teamwork and being able to elevate teamwork within businesses, again, as we know, relates deeply to sports. And he started to think about how appreciation and authenticity really fits into that conversation. And I wanted to share a clip here before we bring him in that sets a little bit of that up.
What can you do with your firm, with your team, with all the different dynamics going on right now, all the personalities, all the challenges, all the uncertainty, everything, the goals, the ambitions? What can you do to really infuse your team with a culture of high performance, trust, and belonging? And what I'm going to do is talk about the two primary things that I have studied over the last 2.5 decades that drive culture more than almost anything else. And they're simple to understand, they're just not always easy to practice. The first thing we're going to talk about is authenticity. And the second thing we're going to talk about is appreciation. Authenticity and appreciation are the two things that drive performance, trust, and belonging more than anything else. And if we can really embody these things ourselves, but also start to infuse them into the culture of our teams, of our firms, with the people around us, some really amazing things can happen.
Mike, authenticity and appreciation, my friend. Lots of people talk about it, but as you say, it seems easy, but it's hard to do. Do you want to expound on that a little bit for us here?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Rajan. It's great to be here with everybody. It's an honor. I mean, I think for me, you talked a little bit about my baseball career ending, and I think my initial focus on appreciation was very personal, in that when my baseball career ended, I had pitched at Stanford, and then I got drafted by the Kansas City Royals, and I was in the minor leagues. My third season in, I went out to pitch one night. I threw one pitch. I tore ligaments in my elbow, and my career was over. I was 23 at the time when I got hurt, and I had started playing baseball when I was 7. 2 years, 3 surgeries later, I was done. And, I was super disappointed. I mean, I was devastated because, I was a kid raised by a single mom in Oakland, California. We didn't have a lot of money. I was going to make it to the big leagues. But up to that point, I spent and wasted most of my time thinking that I wasn't good enough and comparing myself to everyone around me and like holding my breath, hoping that I didn't screw it up. And when it was all said and done and I hadn't made it, I thought to myself, oops, I think I missed the point. Like I hadn't been appreciating what I was doing or how good I was. I was just so focused on the goal. And so that was kind of my initial sort of inquiry into appreciation. And, as you mentioned, I worked for a couple of internet companies in the late 90s. I grew up here in the San Francisco Bay Area where I still live. And I started to notice some things on the first team that I was ever on. I realized, because in sports, I was fascinated by team dynamics. It wasn't always the best players that made the best teams. But I thought that was a sports thing. Like we called it chemistry, and no one could quite define what it was, but you knew when you had it and you knew when you didn't have it. And it wasn't just a warm, fuzzy, touchy-feely thing. It like made us play better. And then I realized, oh, that's not a sports thing. That's a human thing. Like in business, my manager was just calling it culture. And I'm like, that's the same thing. So I just got really curious about that. And, when I got laid off from my internet company in 25 plus years ago, I was like, I think I want to study this. I want to understand this. I was young, but I was like, what does it take to make teams really great? And my study, but also my lived experience all those years in sports was like when people actually appreciate each other, like genuinely, and they're real with one another, it doesn't just feel good. And it does. It actually makes everybody perform better. So like that's what I've been really looking at and talking about. And, for the last 25 years. And 25 years ago, people weren't talking about that because that seemed weird and soft and squishy and like, what the heck is that? And now I think there's a lot of research and experience that backs that up.
Absolutely. And there are 2 stories that you've shared with me that I really love and want you to share here. One of them is the appreciation piece from the baseball side when you come off that mound, you know, that story. And then the other one is what you did with appreciation in one of your first sales jobs and when you raised your hand. So let's just start with the baseball one, and we could just talk about that for a second.
Well, one of the distinctions that I make when I'm speaking and in all my work, Marjana, as you know, is the distinction between recognition, which is about performance and outcome, and appreciation, which is about people. So appreciation is about caring about people and valuing people. Recognition is about acknowledging performance. And the best way I know to describe the difference between these two things is an example from my baseball career. So I was a pitcher in baseball. So even if you're not much of a baseball fan, you probably know what happens in the baseball game when the pitcher does not do well, right? They stop the game and the manager literally walks out to the middle of the field, physically removes the ball from your hand and makes you leave. And then he hands the ball to someone else who takes over and starts doing your job for you. And the worst part of the whole experience, especially if I did really bad, like I gave up 7 runs in the second inning, is when I'd walk off the field, I'd go sit down on the bench and nobody would talk to me. Not because they were jerks, but just because it's like this weird unwritten rule in baseball when the pitcher does bad, like, oh, leave him alone. He's upset.
Right. They think you're angry. Yeah.
I was upset, but I could have used some, not recognition, like, great job, Robbins. No, I did a terrible job. So we don't want to recognize people when they don't perform well. But in that moment, Marjana, what I needed and almost never got was some appreciation, like genuine, compassionate appreciation, not for my performance, but for me.
Yeah.
That's what appreciation is. It's about connecting with the real humans. Like letting people know that they're valued and cared about regardless of performance. And the other story that you alluded to is one that I often share. And this was a real insight for me and actually part of what motivated me many, many years ago to want to start speaking. But I was on my first sales team and we were part of a company that was based in New York. We had offices all over the country. We had 3 sales teams in the San Francisco office. But I was complaining to some friends of mine about how my team would often complain. Like we had good people on the team, smart people, but we didn't have much team chemistry. And over the weekend, I was complaining to some friends and a friend of mine challenged me and said, why don't you do something? And I said, like what? And they're like, I don't know, talk to the team, try to motivate them. And I'm like, okay. So on Monday morning, I walk into my manager's office, Brian, and I said, Brian, I want to talk to the team on Wednesday at our weekly sales meeting. He's like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I don't know, just Brian had played basketball in college and was like the sports thing. And I was like, you know how we can be a championship team. And he was like, all right, Robbins, you know, get out of my office. He was kind of an old school sales. This is like advertising sales, right?
Yeah.
Internet advertising. So anyway, Wednesday comes around and like, I don't want to talk to the team anymore. Cause I'm like, that was a bad idea. I shouldn't have said I wanted to do that. Like they're going to roll their eyes and laugh me out of the room. We sit down in the conference room. Everyone's in a bad mood as they usually are for those meetings. And like, he passes out the agendas and it's just got 6 points. And the point number 6 has my name on it, Mike Robbins. And I'm like, oh God, this is terrible. And the meeting's going long and people are getting annoyed. And we get done with point number 5 and the meeting's like wrapping up and people start leaving. And I'm thinking, cool, maybe I'm off the hook. I start leaving too. I'm just like, I'm out of here. And then all of a sudden Brian goes, hold on. My bad. I forgot. Sit back down. Robbins over here wants to try to motivate you guys. And I'm like, oh gosh. So then I like pop up. And everyone's looking at me like, what is he doing? And I'm super nervous. And I'm like, well, what if we like work together like a team and, you know, appreciate each other and have each other. And they're just like, what? And it's going bad. Like, you know, the voice in my head is screaming at me like, stop it. Don't do like, and after a couple minutes, I realized this is not going well. They don't know what I'm, and I just stop. And I realized I'm trying to explain something not very well, but let me show them what I mean. And I turned right to Brian. He was sitting right next to me. And I said, hey, Brian, listen, man, I just want you to know that I really appreciate how hard you work and how committed you are. Like you want us to win. You get here early, you stay. Like I appreciate working with someone who works that hard and is that committed. The next person was a sales assistant. I didn't even know her that well. She only started a couple weeks earlier. And I said, Sharon, I know you just started. We don't know each other very well, but I appreciate, you know, you've jumped in, you got a great attitude. I think you're going to be successful. And I literally went around the table to each person. I'd been working there for about 9 months. Some of them I knew better than others. Some of them I was closer with than others, but I just let them know what I appreciated about them. And I didn't really have anything else to say, Marjana. And then I sat down and it got kind of awkward. But then like nobody moved, nobody did anything. And then people started talking and this conversation started. And we ended up in that conference room for like an hour having this whole conversation about how we could be a better team. And we came up with some things we were going to do, like buddy systems and like rooting for each other and things that sounded kind of corny. But like we walked out of that conference room kind of fired up and it was the middle of the 3rd quarter. By the end of the 4th quarter, we were the #1 performing sales team in the company. People made fun of us.
Chills when you tell me that. Yeah.
They called us the happy team, But once we started performing like that, they weren't making fun of us. They were like, what's that team doing in San Francisco?
Yeah.
How can we do it? And for me, it was like, it started the thought, wait a minute. I think appreciating people, I think valuing people, I think caring about people doesn't just feel good. It actually drives performance. And like, that's literally what I've been talking about for the last 25 years. And in the world of AI and all the things happening and all the disruption and everything changing, I still don't know anything better that connects us and motivates us more than being appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, because I truly, all the conversations we have between the authenticity and being understanding people authentically, understanding ourselves, that's when we can start collaborating and connecting and innovating and all of that. And that appreciation goes such a long way. So thank you so much. Those two stories still are so sticky for me. You know how we talk about that in the industry. What's the sticky factor in your stories? I love both of those, and really continue to love the time that we work together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rosanna.
All right. And rounding out our conversation with our speakers is Jean Sparrow. Jean Sparrow is a 7-time Emmy-winning broadcaster. She has a book out, Fearless Authenticity. And she really, I love the way she talks about clarity in communication. And here's a fun little clip of one of her pieces from her keynote. Let's take a look.
I don't know how many people in here like to do puzzles. Can I get a raise of hands? Because I love, okay. Oh, my puzzle people are here. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't know how many of y'all like to do puzzles with a little beverage of an adult variety. But you know, sometimes y'all know how you look for that one little piece and it's like shaped like this, you know, and you're trying to find the place where it goes and you're like, it should go here, but it doesn't. And then, you know, God forbid it gets wet with that adult beverage you got, and then it swells up and it changes. But here's the thing, you know what that is? You know what that's like? That's like what it is when you try to change yourself to fit in to places. When you start changing your shape, you're not gonna find the place where you're supposed to fit, and you won't fit in anywhere. And then that cycle continues and continues. Trust me, I mean, haven't we all been there? But then when you dive into who you are, that little puzzle piece, and y'all know that satisfaction, my puzzle piece people, when you put that piece and it goes click, whoo, hallelujah. It's a beautiful feeling, and it's a beautiful feeling for us when that happens.
All right, Jean. Who is all I'm going to say. Who? I love when you do that.
I'm a bit of an idiot sometimes, but it works.
Oh my gosh, the puzzle piece and how we fit in. I mean, listen, none of this works if we don't have you know, again, it is being grounded in who we are, but it's also how do we communicate that back, right? And I think as people and organizations are looking at, you know, how they have more clarity in what they're doing as an organization, people within the organizations, you know, your ideas also around live it, tell it, sell it. I'd love for you to just share some of that with us here. But where I'd like to start is, you know, you've been in media for many years and you've been on stages, you've emceed. Why now? Why really go deep on this topic and bringing this to more audiences?
Because I've lived with it my whole life, and our world in broadcast is very tight, right? Like kind of almost closed off from the rest of the world. And I realized at one point, like especially toward the end of my time doing morning TV, that we know secrets in broadcast that other people don't realize, but they know it, they're just not using it. And we put it to use every day. Like I would sit next to people, you know, Major League Baseball World Series winners, CEOs of major companies who would freak out the minute the camera lights came on and they needed to talk about something that was really important to them. And a lot of what they were talking about were things that were of service to other people that other people needed to know about. But if they weren't able to get that message out, then them showing up wasn't even enough, right? Because that is 90% of anything any of us do. But the part that gets us past that is how we talk about it, especially from a place that is authentic and real. And I think what we've heard from everybody, from Ian, from Rachel, and from Mike, is that our stories do matter. How we tell them matters, and that they come from a place that connects us all together so that we can all move forward together, because that's all any of us want. wants. That's what makes life satisfying. That's what makes our work satisfying.
Absolutely. And I know one of the stories that we wanted to bring in today is about your cousin. And it's a great story for anyone in the work environment about how getting creative, knowing who you are, being able to communicate the things that you do well can really help an entire organization. Can you share that story with us?
Okay, so this is my youngest cousin, and she might be really embarrassed that I tell her story on stages. Although she was honored when I finally told her, I was like, look, this is what I'm telling people because it's really good. She is a new manager. She just got her MBA a couple of years ago. She got promoted at her job, started managing a team. And to pull from something Ian said, her company added an AI tool to use internally and just added it to their dashboard without any kind of instructions. And she was like, what's this? Now, as a setup, this cousin is the person who organizes everything in our family and uses technology to do it. She's good for sending an app and going, this is how we're doing our grab bag this year. Here's an app. This is how we're doing the shower, whatever shower it is for whomever it is in the family. And she does that for everything. And after she and I had a conversation about my book, and I was like, Kitty, just do you. Whatever it is, just do you and you're going to be fine. And I was just giving her a pep talk, and she had read, the manuscript of the book. And so she started, because she's that person that does this in our real life, she started playing with the AI app at work and decided to put it to use with her team. Her team starts outperforming all the other teams in their section on this one thing. And next thing you know, she is presenting to the CEO about how she developed this tool that now they're all using. She's now going through this Lean Six Sigma to become part of a project team that actually organizes how it's going to roll out across the company. And this is her first big promotion, and I'm sure there are more to come. But it's like she took the initiative of figuring out how to use what she does every day for her family and uses it for her team.
Yeah, that's
And
it, right? Living it deeply, authentically, the thing that her essence at her core, and being able to find a way to share that.
yes. And that's what I think we all do. And that's what we've been talking about for the last, 45 minutes of how do we put together these ideas to get creative in the way that we are every day? How do we start to find the value in that? A lot of my work is really about us understanding and doing for each other, whether it's as leaders or as coworkers. Like Mike says, like the appreciation factor actually helps people understand, because so many of our jobs are thankless, right? Like, because it happens, it's what's expected. It's you hear something when it doesn't happen, and that kind of negative reinforcement doesn't actually make us try to do anything. It actually does the opposite. It tries to keep us from making a mistake, and that's not how we create anything. You can't create from a negative. Everybody who's in a creative environment knows that. But it's so hard to create that system. But we've just talked here today about how all that happens. And to me, at the core of that is clear communication of that, actually opening your mouth and saying the words, not assuming that people know how they do well, not assuming that people know their ideas are welcome, but actually taking the time to craft what you want to say and say it from your heart.
So I know one of your frameworks, and I want to make sure we just bring that into this, is you talk about this idea of live it, tell it, sell it. Do you want to just take us through that really quickly?
Yes. 3 easy steps. We call her Letici. If you have a problem remembering things, that's her name. Okay. Live it is about you. It's about how you show up, being aware of how you affect other people, and being responsible with how you affect other people. Tell it is about the thing that connects us together, the stories that we tell and the way we tell it. And then sell it is the most important part. No matter how icky people feel about selling people on something, we're all doing it anyway. So why not do it in a way that actually reaches the people? Don't just think about what you have to say. Think about the way in which other people need to hear it. Be of service every time you open up your mouth, and let that part and that spirit of service come through every time. And that's the way we all move forward together.
Mm. Well, you definitely live it, tell it, sell it all the way. I mean, your authenticity shines on stage, off stage. Your work is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us here and sharing a piece of it with us.
Thank you so much for working with us and for having us today. This has been a great way to end the year.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Well, we still have a little bit more with some industry insights from my incredible colleagues and dear friends, Melissa Mann from Speak Inc. and Danielle Sweeney from the Keynote Co. And welcome, my friends. I really want to just, kind of round out this conversation, having heard these incredible speakers, really bringing these ideas forward for the new year. And I just wonder, Danielle, I'll start with you as you listened to Ian, Rachel, Mike, and Jean. Are any of these, what's resonating for you as you think about coming alive at work in 2026?
Well, I'm looking at all of my notes here, and I think something that Jean just said that just really rang true, and it's something that is so easy to forget. It's think about what you say and how others need to hear it. And I think that's with all of this that we've talked about today, there's a culmination point in that line, because that brings up authenticity, it brings up creativity, it brings up how we're going to show ourselves in a way that we don't feel like we're being squashed into these little places. So it's a really powerful message to kind of end the year on. I got a lot of reflection to do, I think.
Oh, so good. Melissa, my friend, what are you thinking?
Well, first, I have tears in my eyes. So thanks, Jean. I mean, it really does remind me of how I love what I do as an agent, bringing all of your voices to the world. And I think if you're asking, like, what do audiences need right now? I mean, that piece of that authenticity and creativity, it's real. People come to work with a lot of baggage, and it's a chaotic world, a lot of stuff on our heads and hearts. And this isn't a joke. If there's a speaker who could help unlock this for us in a real authentic way, in a way that makes business sense, I'm all for it. So thanks for sharing all your ideas today.
Yeah, everybody was so good. I mean, again, that's why we do this work. We learn so much from the speakers that we work with, right? We really apply this. And when we can apply some of these tools and ideas and strategies, that's when we can talk about them to our clients even better. So absolutely. Looking, Danielle, at the conversations that you are having with buyers across the board, and as people look at what they want in 2026 versus the gaps that you're seeing in terms of, sometimes those conversations, there's just gaps between what you're hearing the client wants and then what they're actually sort of going for in the end. How do you advise them, and how are you going to advise them in the new year to be able to bring in, programs that really light people up?
Marjana, that is the ultimate question. And I think I could probably speak for Melissa and I in that it comes down to the questions that we ask the clients and then really listening for those answers. So I think where we're seeing the biggest gap, and probably looking at, last year compared to this year, last year was all about tactical. How do we navigate AI? What is the thing that we do? What is the 1, 2, 3 step, whatever? I'm sorry, I'm putting on my evil dad voice.
I was like, I've never heard that voice before.
My kids hear it. But that, I think that's a really big part of that. Or what we were seeing last year. And this year, there's been a really big shift. What I'm hearing, and because I manage speakers, I've got 7 speakers on my roster, and they are all different in terms of the audiences that they speak to. But the through line is the same. It's not about the tactical, it's about the tangible. How are people feeling? How can we motivate people? I mean, to Rachel's point about unmuting people and bringing them into that aliveness, that is one of the key parts of what's happening today. And then when we're looking at an AI, I mean, Ian, you were talking about some of this with creativity and bringing in, what does it actually look like? Is it the AI part or is it the change part? And when we start to ask our clients the questions that kind of go, well, what is it about AI that worries you or that you're thinking about? That's the part that is really, really landing. Well, our people are afraid of. This is different. This is about change. It's very much we're going, people, our leaders and our clients are going into their people and asking them what's on their hearts and minds, for Melissa's point. And that is a massive shift. That's almost 180 degrees from last year, which was all about, give me the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I think it's a great shift to see. And Melissa, what are you seeing from your side?
I think by extension, she's always spot on, but really asking clients and buyers, like, what are your people feeling right now? And also thinking about the context in an event. I mean, it takes a lot to show up, to take a plane, a train, to get backup care for puppies and kids and all the things. It takes a lot to get in that room. So the stories we tell, the stories we bring to audiences have to be very deserving of their time and energy. So as agents, we really have to ask the right questions and helping our clients navigate, like, really, what do your people need right now? How can these stories and these keynotes really serve your audience at this time? And we don't have time to waste. We have to be very honest about finding that right fit for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielle, one of the other things that we all talk about, and we've been talking about a lot more, is how are we going to be even more consultative with our clients in terms of helping guide? Again, there used to be a time where we call ourselves order takers. People call and they're like, I need a speaker on this topic. But now it really is, again, a matter of intentional, strategic engagement, probably calling your clients, even when the events aren't happening, sharing ideas, brainstorming. Is that something that you're finding is a big part of your work, and you're looking to go deeper with that in the new year?
Absolutely. Marjana, as ever, you've really understood this in a slightly different way, because I think the consultative part is the part that I think that's one of the things that working with speakers like that. And I know all the people who are here today, Jean, Rachel, Mike, Ian, like, they are in there because they care about the client, and they've already done a ton of research in the lead up to. So why wouldn't they work with the planners of the C-suite on a panel? Why wouldn't they do a Q&A? Why wouldn't they kind of be part of a lunch or an event that it's not adding value from a sales perspective, but it's actually, hey, we've done all this work, we understand your business, and we want to help you go further. So what can we do after the fact? How can we really be a partner to our clients? And that's where that relationship starts to get built. I mean, if we're just doing all this research and then getting off stage after 60 minutes, well, I mean, it's kind of a snooze for everybody. Like, let's really understand the client and let's go, hey, remember last year when you were doing this and this was the challenge? Like, I know you just posted this article, and like, it sounds like this is like, I know Melissa's got this great speaker who, can adapt to that. Or like, did you know Ian's talking about creativity? And that's a really big part. It's not just plain innovation anymore. Like, it's understanding them on a deeper level and figuring out how we can work with them. I think we're all a bit bored by that transactional approach.
Absolutely. And Melissa, building on that, and from the agency side, and I know when I worked on the agency side, sometimes we'd be like, well, here's the big stage, here's the one keynote, and that's what this person is interested in. Are you seeing that expand, where your buyer is looking at, how do we do the breakout, do the moderated conversation, building out even more things? How do you see all that changing in a deeper way?
Well, yeah, two things there. I think it's all about value creation, right? People like Danielle hit it. Like, people want, why not? You have this amazing talent on site. They want to get all of that value and all of that insight and expertise while they're there. And you have to remember that, like, for the speaker, it might be one of 60 events you all are doing, but for the client, it's like their Super Bowl. They're putting so much time and energy and planning. This is the most important day for them. So why not show up and do all the things to make it the best event possible, for sure. And back to the consultative approach, of course, like, turning how much is Mike to really a relationship is sometimes hard in what I do, right? I'm selling not just a speaker, but really the consultative services that we add. And sometimes you start that conversation at a deficit, a negotiation deficit, really turning it into not just what can I buy, but what can we build together and create? And I'm trying more and more to show that to my clients.
Absolutely. Well, just to round out this conversation with both of you, Danielle, what are you looking forward to most in 2026 when we talk about this, bringing these ideas to organizations, to your clients? What's one thing?
One of the things I love to do is work with my speakers together with a client. Like, for instance, we've got this great gig coming up in February, and I have two speakers who are on the docket, and they're working together, and we're actually creating an actionable thing for them to activity for the client to use over the course of the year. And then we're going to help them build on that and create some resources. So just like you did today, we see a challenge that a client is facing in a different way when we see it from a couple of perspectives. We know that is the case. That is simply how our brains and minds work. So I'm really looking forward to working with my clients and helping them figure out ways that we can actually help them create programs. And or, if we have, like, Melissa's got a speaker going to an event and I have a speaker going to an event, how do Melissa and I kind of get those two together and talk about it so they can work together and really be collaborative? And I think that's the name of the game. It's no longer just, we're not on an island anymore. We're all, if we work together, we know our clients are going to work together better. We're going to work together better, and we're all going to get a better understanding and more knowledge and move further, better together. You and I have always talked about this, and it's something you do so beautifully in our industry. And I know all of us are so grateful for that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, and again, that's exactly like we came together, even this team, this collective of, Ian, Rachel, Mike, and Jean, when we started talking about this conversation. Sure, we could have sat here and just done their topics, their different things, but we talked about how do we bring this together from a bigger perspective. So whether a person wants to bring in just one of them or internally talk about what this looks like with this idea from all four aspects, that's what we're here to do, is help people get inspired from that perspective. Melissa, what for you is what you're looking ahead to in 2026?
Oh gosh, intentionality, really taking the time and care to send the bright speakers out into the world, taking note of everything you've shared with me today and putting that into my own practice as at work and home. And, I'm so fortunate that it took me personally many decades to figure out what I love to do and just honoring that craft every day. So thank to everyone on the call today to really help me do that in 2026. And I think the more we slow down and really honor our own crafts and our voices, the more we can serve others. So that's what.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I mean, that sets us off right there. Thank you so much for being incredible colleagues, incredible friends, brainstormers, mind melders. Really enjoy working with both of you, and we'll continue to do more in the new year. But thank you for joining us here. And to finally round out this conversation, we did a little fun twist like we did with one of our recent LinkedIn Lives and asked speakers to just give us comments on how they might add to this conversation. And we're going to bring in speaker Jeff Salzenstein, who is former top 100 world ranked tennis player and Stanford All-American. And, he talks about turning stress around, right? It isn't stress that is going to crush us, right, Jeff? It's the way we handle it, what we do with it. And any of these topics that we talked about today with our other speakers, none of it can come together if stress is taking over our lives. And we know that it is so nuanced and can be devastating. And you certainly have a deeply personal story around that. But can you just share a little bit about what brings you to the stages in terms of the importance of this and what you want to share with us here?
Thank you. Thanks so much for bringing me on this call. So happy to be here and see everyone. I see old friends, Mike Robbins. We shared the Stanford baseball fields and tennis fields 30 years ago, and now our paths have crossed all these years later. I see friends that I've met in the last year or two, and I see folks on the call that I haven't met yet that I'd love to. The journey is for all of us is about, as we're high achievers, we're leaders in the world. How do we handle, before we get to the stress part, how do we handle the pressure? How do we handle the pressure that shows up in our lives? And last time I checked at how fast the world is moving, it's not about pushing the pressure away or the stress or saying, gosh, I feel so stressed out. It's learning the tools, the techniques, and the insights to increase our capacity to handle it. So if you're struggling with burnout, if you're struggling, you feel like you're irritable, you feel like you're not performing at the level that you want, it's not about pushing it away. It's about how can I increase my capacity every single day? And in my framework called Own Your Zone, I've broken it down into 3 zones, and all of you can think about where you're at in these 3 zones. Zone 1 is how we restore the body. So how do we take care of our body, whether it's through movement, through what we put in our mouth, what we drink, and how we sleep, how we recover. The best athletes in the world, they are masters at recovery. Zone 2 is our mindset. How do we rewire our mind? The brain wants to go negative. It wants to keep us safe. So we got to find ways to flip the script and get in the right mindset. You don't always have to be Pollyanna positive, but you do have to find a way to see situations from a wider lens instead of a fear-based lens. And then zone 3 is reconnecting to the heart, and that's human-centered, heart-led leadership, where we're learning how to emotionally regulate in the moment. We have the capacity to handle all the things that are being thrown at us. So you all can think about, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're really struggling, 10 you're absolutely world-class, what number would you be in those 3 zones? And based on that information, that inventory, you can show up and practice being the best version of yourselves. When I present, whether it's a keynote or whether it's a workshop, I ask that question. I get people to open up around that, and it's usually split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And when they walk away, they say, you know what, I really got to work on my sleep, or I got to really work on communication, my self-talk, or I got to work on slowing down, taking a few deep breaths, and connecting my heart to my mind. And as I was listening to the conversation before I jumped on, we talk about authenticity, and we talk about connection, and we talk about showing up for everyone. Well, the only way we can do that is if we show up for ourselves first. So it's an inner journey. It's the internal work that we're doing every single day and every moment. And we're human, so we're going to fall out of that zone. We're going to slip up. So we just got to give ourselves compassion and come back again and reinstall or rework those habits if we've fallen off track a little bit. So I'll stop there because I feel like I've been talking way too much. But I think that's my breakdown of how we can own our zone in 2 or 3 minutes or less.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we're kind of at time here, but I really appreciate you coming on. We will be doing a recap of this in an article tomorrow and having more information about all of you. But thank you so much, Jeff, because again, the stress piece of this is real. The pressure is real. And certainly, again, just like Mike, from a sports background, you bring a lot of insights that are practical from that world and really relatable in the business world. So thank you so much for what you're doing on stage and off stage. And we'll be bringing more about you as well. And so everyone, just rounding out this conversation, I just want to thank all of my guests for being here and for having this conversation. The thing we need to remember is that alongside all of this disruption, uncertainty, the things that feel burdensome, let's find a way to get through it, because we as humans are built for times like these. We've had those conversations time and again throughout this year, whether on these LinkedIn Lives or in conversations that we're having in our own back rooms with each other. But the reality is we have to just remember we can be creative, and we are. We have to unmute ourselves to really open that part of ourselves up and become alive. We have to live in our authenticity, and then we know how we have to clarify and communicate that properly. So again, to our guests, Ian Beecraft, Rachel Druckenmiller, Mike Robbins, Jean Sparrow, thank you so much. As speakers, everything you're doing on stage and off stage. Jeff, thank you for the quick touch here. We'll learn more about you too. And Melissa and Danielle, my friends, thank you so much for all you're doing in the industry, the hard work you do, and wishing everybody an incredible end of the year and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us.